April 20th, 1999, two students entered Columbine High School, approximately 15 miles southwest of Denver. Once inside, they began to aimlessly and senselessly shoot and kill numerous students and members of staff. In total, 13 people were killed, and 20 more were injured. The immediate aftermath of this attack sent shock waves around the nation. As with any event on this scale, Columbine has become heavily ingrained into the cultural consciousness. Because school shootings are such a big cultural concept, it's no surprise many pieces of media have been made about them. This includes movies. Since the turn of the millennium, school shooting movies have become almost a genre of their own, and this is why today I wanted to take a look at some of these movies and discuss the different ways that school violence, especially school shootings, are covered in films. There was a period where it was considered too fresh of an event. It was 2002 when the status quo was broken, with 4 movies tackling the issue of school violence coming out. The most popular and impactful of this bunch was actually a documentary, Michael Moore's Bowling for Columbine. The film explores the environmental causes that led to the shooting taking place and widely criticizes American culture for its encouragement of violent attacks and how easy it is to get a hold of firearms in the country. Say what you will about the integrity of this film, but it is no doubt incredibly influential for changing public opinion on Columbine and more broadly attacks of mass violence as a whole. The documentary would even win the Oscar for Best Documentary Feature that year, where Michael Moore would be booed off stage for criticizing Bush's motives for the Iraq War.
Reasons, whether it's the fictition of duct tape or the fictitious of orange alerts. We are against this war, Mr. Bush. Shame on you, Mr. Bush. Shame on you.
Bang Bang You're Dead follows a 16-year-old outcast who is the lead actor in a school production of the play Bang Bang You're Dead. At the same time, Trevor decides to plan to commit a school shooting himself with his friends, but through the play, he realizes violence isn't the answer, and informs the school of his classmates' plans, prematurely stopping the shooting before it can even occur. This film is interesting with its depiction of a school shooting, as it never directly depicts it. Instead, it just talks about the reasons for why someone may decide to organize a shooting like this, but never shows it. And it seeks to show that if we recognize the signs of these things, then we can stop them before it's too late. It takes a more empathetic approach to exploring school shootings and the people behind them. The movie 0 Day does precisely the opposite. The shooting isn't approached as something that can be avoided or changed, it is a constant. It is happening no matter what anyone does to these characters. The two characters in this movie, Andre and Cal, do this not because they're ignored by society, but because they think that they owe this to society. They're doing this to make a statement. They aren't forced into this attack because they feel like there's no other way to stop their bullying. They do it because of a twisted sense of morality. They feel as if the people they are killing deserve to die because they didn't respect their fellow man, as they put it, which is an insanely hypocritical attitude for them to have, but these two characters are insanely hypocritical because they are both psychopaths. As they say at the end of the film, there's nothing anyone could have done to prevent this. No matter what setbacks came in their way, they would have eventually followed through with their plan. While these two movies showcase the lead up to the event, they never fully indulge in the event itself. 0 Day does show the shooting, but it doesn't spend so much time obsessing over the details of it. Gus Van Sant's movie Elephant is much less of a film that focuses on why school shootings happen, and is more a film that focuses on the shooting itself. It does spend some time with the perpetrators before they commit the attack. It simply shows them, obtaining the guns and drawing out the plans. The whole purpose of Elephant is not to showcase why school shootings happen or how they happen or what leads up to them, but it's to linger for naturally long periods of time on the events themselves. The movie often wraps back around on itself, coming back to certain moments over and over again from different perspectives. We see kids taking pictures, getting bullied, participating in clubs, and even having bulimic rituals in the bathroom. How everyone's normal day-to-day life would go on normally, and how the shooting changes that. It focuses on the people that are affected by the shooting. The film barely cares about the reasoning behind the event, only the event itself. All it cares about is the fact this happened, and now there is no going back. The film has no real conclusion, it just ends. It only seeks to show the shooting in all of its horrifying detail. It doesn't say anything about it or try to make some sort of statement on shootings in general, it just shows it. After Elephant, the impact Columbine had on the culture didn't fade per se, but it wasn't as immediately noticeable as it was before. The late 2000s would feature another prominent example of the school shooting movie, although a bit of a different one. In 2008, The Life Before Her Eyes follows a school shooting survivor, both immediately following the event and 15 years after the attack. It explores the effects that these events can have on the victims of these attacks, and how those effects never fully go away. It is kind of ahead of its time in this way. It actually cares about the people involved and seeks to raise awareness on how traumatizing these events can be. Going into the new decade, violence in schools would sadly not slow down and would only become more prevalent. However, as school shootings and school violence in general became more widely known, the way it would be portrayed began to shift. After people reeled from the tragedy that was Columbine, they began to shift their focus away from the events of the shooting themselves and towards the people committing the shooting, the friends and family surrounding them. What kind of environment does it take to raise someone like this? How could these thoughts and feelings of the perpetrators go unnoticed? What do the people involved with these killers think about what happened? These concepts and ideas would be explored throughout the decade of the 2010s. One of these films would be 2010's Beautiful Boy, not to be confused with the 2018 film with the same name. It is interesting in comparison to previous depictions of school shootings and how it tells its story. It doesn't focus on the lead up to the shooting or the event itself, but instead the aftermath. On how they blame themselves for not realizing it, on how others blame them for the same reason, on how people try to leverage the event to get more attention, on how two people can cope with the fact that the one they love the most committed one of the worst actions a person can ever commit. It's an incredibly stripped back and bare bones portrayal that never tries to shock you with the horrors of school shootings, but instead tells an incredibly intimate story of a troubled couple and their relationship following this horrifying event. In 2011, Scottish director Lynne Ramsay would release We Need to Talk About Kevin. This film brings something new and interesting to the table when it comes to how these events are depicted in movies, following the mother of an offender of an act of school violence, as she recounts her experiences raising her son and how the signs of the sadistic person who had grown up to be were present all along. The mother, Eva, often blames herself for what happened and feels like she doesn't deserve to live a good life in the aftermath. She often just lets other members of the community constantly abuse her and take advantage of her because she feels like she deserves it, even though she also lost a husband and a daughter in the attack. She knew all along that her child was a vindictive psychopath, but she did nothing to stop him because no one else seemed to recognize or care about his behavior. Kevin's father is extremely dismissive of the idea that Kevin is dangerous or violent. The movie never takes a stance on whether Kevin was destined to be evil or not. We are never fully shown an unbiased perspective on how these tendencies formed the way they did. It's clear that Eva never wanted to be a mother. She resented Kevin before he was even born, and she feels like he is responsible for making her life miserable, and often takes it out on him as a young boy. This all brings up the interesting question of whether evil is born or made, or whether it's a mix of both. Are the people who commit acts like Kevin always destined to be like this, or is it the fault of their upbringing? 2013's The Dirties, directed by Matt Johnson, following a group of young movie-obsessed boys in their pursuits to create the best school shooting movie ever made, and over the course of the film, their plans get very out of hand. Each scene in the movie is set up by these characters in the film to be a scene in a movie. And we see the characters editing the movie that we are watching in the movie. The film covers how living vicariously through media can be harmful and detrimental to someone's development. They are making a movie, their entire lives become dedicated to making this movie, and they begin to lose touch from reality and forget that their lives aren't simply a movie. It also doesn't treat itself too seriously. The movie knows that the subject matter is serious, but it treats itself as if it is unserious, as if everything happening is just a movie, because to these characters, it is just a movie. The people making this movie think that it's all fun and games, and that really makes the movie all the more unsettling and terrifying when contrasted with the conclusion of the film, which does showcase the school shooting in action. Today, school shootings have become even more commonplace. They're simply a reality of 21st century life. Thusly, films about school shootings and mass violence in general are not really a super enticing or interesting concept anymore in the same way they were directly after Columbine. However, this is not to say school shootings are no longer acknowledged in media at all. For instance, Megan Park's 2021 film The Fallout isn't necessarily a movie about a school shooting, but it does use a school shooting as a story device to make a very interesting statement about trauma and how it can affect people and how people can bond through shared trauma. And it really just uses the school shooting as a jumping off point to tell the story about coping with these horrifying experiences. Mike Barker's 2022 film Luckiest Girl Alive, which is based on a novel from 2015, follows a woman who experienced a school shooting in her past, and she's moved on from the event, but a documentary about the shooting spurs back unwanted memories, and the past soon comes back to haunt her. The shooting is simply used as an event in this film to help tell a greater story. The evolution of these types of stories in film simply goes to show how the way we as a culture view certain events changes over time. All art to some degree stems from reality, and we use things that happen in the real world to create interesting art that tells stories that could not have been told without these experiences that we have gained from living in this messed up world. So, thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you liked it. And if you did, please give it a like. Goodbye, and I'll see you next time.